Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Vetiva Capital and our media partners at Frontier Africa Report, we welcome you to another edition of the Vetiva Breakfast Meeting. In today's session, we'll be hearing from our capital market analysts who will give us a rundown of the fixed income and global equities market. We'll also be getting updates from across Africa by our media partners at Frontier Africa Report. We would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with third parties. It is also being streamed live on our Vetiva online Facebook page if you prefer to view from that platform. Also, during the course of the session, you may send in questions using any of the chat functions available via Zoom or Facebook. However, at the end of the session, we would have a Q&A segment, and if you prefer to speak, you may use the raise hand function, and we'll unmute you so that you can speak. We'll now be starting off with Sean, our global equities trader, who will be reviewing some markets across West Africa. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Victoria, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Like Victoria mentioned, I'll be reviewing our performance of some markets across West Africa. So starting off in BRVM, the composite index ended the session higher, closing 33 basis points up. The index was lifted by gains in some beaten down names like Track Africa Motto. And they are showing some beaten down names that are showing resurgence, as well as others that are extending their gaining streak, such as Safka, which closed 7.23%, and Stico, which also closed 7.47% higher in those sessions. So we're seeing both beating down names and some other names that are extending their gaining streak, lifting the market. Just like in previous session, Sonatel and ETI continues to dominate activity chart on a day which saw decline in the activity, in the level of activity. With yesterday's gain, the index year-to-date return improved to 10.55. So we're seeing some level of improvement in the index for BRVM. So going into today, we expect the index to close out the week in the green, and we anticipate gains in names such as Safka and Siko to support the market to a positive close. We also expect the week-on-week return to be positive, as the week-to-date return for that market is currently 53 basis points. And moving to Ghana, it was a largely sideways trading, with the index inching up by just 1 basis point. The demand in benzo oil was sustained in the session, just like what we had on Wednesday. We saw that play out in yesterday's session as well. The counter was the only gainer in the market. We also saw increase in activity level in the session, which was on the back of trades in largely the financial sector. Names like GCB Bank and CAL were the major names that pushed the level of activity higher. And we saw bids in Enterprise Group as well as Total, which were largely unmet. So I think we will have actually seen more. The activity level will have actually increased, but because of some unmet demands in those two names, that's Enterprise Group as well as Total. Looking at our expectation for this last trading day of the week, we anticipate a similar trend in today's session, with some unmet bids, with some chance of the benchmark index also closing higher, as demand in earlier mentioned names continue to persist. So I think what we have noticed on the index is there are a couple of names with strong buy interest, but we're not seeing as much supply to meet those bids, and we expect this to continue in this session. So lastly, back in Lagos, the All-Share Index took a breather from 4 consecutive days of gain to close lower, though marginally by just 8 basis points. So we saw 8 basis points lower close yesterday. And just in line with our expectation, we saw profit taking across sectors led by the banks. The banking sector has seen the most broad-based priced movement recently, and the 59 basis point negative close of the sector was expected, as the likes of Access, GT Holding, UBA, even Stanbic, just across that sector, where others also, they all ended the session lower. For consumer goods was also another lagging sector. We saw losses in Dangote Sugar and PZ, pulling that sector lower. Speaking to the activity level, this was largely mixed on the day. We saw volume traded declining, while turnover closed flat. I think it was just about 1% gain, so pretty much a flat close on the turnover. Market breadth also closed lower after consecutive days of more advancers. We saw 12 advancers and 18 decliners in yesterday's session. So I think the theme that we saw in the market yesterday was that investors were likely just taking profit from what they've seen since the beginning of the week, which was expected. So for the theme going into today, we expect activity level to stay slightly elevated, as investors feel their bids at likely lower levels, which is good for the market to an extent. That said, with the profit taking seen in previous session, we expect mixed activity as savvy investors begin to position in names that will likely declare better than expected results, while others take some profit. So mixed activity is expected in today's session. So finally, with the week today return at 68 basis point positive, we expect the week to maintain a green close, barring any sell down in any of the large cap names. So thank you, and do have a great weekend. That'll be it for the equities market.
Thank you very much, Sean, for the update. Next up is Omorege, who will be giving us updates on the fixed income markets. Good morning, Omorege.
Good morning, Victoria. Okay, good morning, everybody. System liquidity for yesterday declined significantly to open at about 46.4 billion negative from the 53.53 billion positive that was recorded on Wednesday. And this decline that was recorded on Thursday, coupled with the increased funding pressure as players had to make provision for the OMO auction that happened yesterday. We saw interbank rate tightening by over 125 basis points as OBB and overnight rate closed at 11.25 basis points and 11.75 basis points respectively. We expect that the money market will trade at higher levels today as players make funding provisions for the FX retail auction that is happening today. The parallel market remained stable yesterday to trade at 503 naira to $1, while the annual window opened at 411.75 naira to $1. The highest rate recorded yesterday was about 420.86 naira to $1, while the closing rate was 411.25 naira to $1, which is a 20 kobo appreciation from where it closed on Wednesday. After the loss recorded in crude oil prices yesterday, on Wednesday, rather, we saw the oil price rally yesterday as Brent crude gained about 2.61% to close at $74.08 per barrel, while the WTI also gained about 0.55% to close at $72.98 per barrel. This gain was largely on the back of the increased demand as the US crude and gasoline inventories declined significantly by about 6.9 million barrels, which is almost about 4 million barrels more than the estimated drop by Reuters polls. The TB's market recorded a very quiet trading session yesterday, where EVA saw persistent offer on the newly issued one-year paper. That's the June 30th, 2022. Bids on the newly issued one-year paper hovered around 8.8% levels, but offers were around 8.6 levels in the market yesterday. We also saw slight activity on the 16 September and the 31 December 2021 maturities. Overall, it was a very quiet trading session yesterday with few trades consummated across the benchmark curve. Average benchmark rate increased by an average of 2 basis points to close at 6.37%. The OMO segment also traded on a very muted note yesterday as market players focused on the OMO auction that had yesterday. At the OMO auction, the DMO sold about 70 billion across the three tenors, despite offering 20 billion while maintaining marginal rates across board. On the short end, the total amount on offer was 5 billion, subscription was 2.5 billion. The total sale on that end was 2 billion, while the marginal rate maintained at 7%. On the mid end, the total amount offered was 5 billion, subscription was 5.5 billion. Total allotment was 5 billion, while the marginal rate also maintained at 8.5%. On the long end, the total amount offered was 10 billion, subscription was 27.67 billion. Total allotment was 10 billion, while marginal rate also maintained at 10.10%. The bonds market traded on a moderate note yesterday with a slightly bullish undertone. The most sought after paper yesterday was the 2050 maturity. We saw bids moderate from the 13.1% levels we saw on Wednesday to settle around 13.01% levels in the market yesterday, while we also saw some trades consummated at around 13% levels on the 2050 maturity. We also saw bids on the 2045 maturity decline by about 10 basis points from the 12.7% that we saw on Wednesday to settle around 12.6% levels. There were offers on the short end of the curve, precisely the 2027 and the 2028 maturity, but there were really no bids on that end. The offers seen on those maturities were around 12.3% on the 2027 and 12.32% on the 2028 maturity. In the local Eurobond space, it was a very active trading section on the sovereigns as we saw interest across all the sovereigns except the 2022 maturity, with average rate declining by 5.8 basis points across those traded maturities. In the corporate space, activity was largely muted with few side interest in on the EcoBank 2031 Eurobond. What to look out for today in the Eurobond space is the new issuance, as the government of Ivory Coast is coming into the Eurobond market to issue about 1 billion euros today. Okay, our expectation for the bonds market today is that the bonds market will close this week on a very active note as investors continue to cherry pick offers across the benchmark curve ahead of the promissory note maturities, the coupon inflows, and the bond maturities that are all coming in next week. While we believe that the TB's market will trade in line with system liquidity, which will most likely be muted as most of the available funds today will be channeled towards the FS retail auction. That'll be all for fixed income. Thank you very much and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you very much, Omorike. We'll now be rounding off with Boasin, who will give us updates from across Africa. Good morning, Boasin.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you very much for coming through. Actually, we have a few headlines across the African continent. Let's take a little bit around the Egyptian market, which was a little bit in the positive on Thursday. Of course, is the final trading day of the week. The local players which Egyptians were the net sellers. The foreigners were about 8.76% of the sellers. The rest of the Arabian participants were about 6.5% of the buyers. Inflation for the largest economy on the north of Africa went up to 5.3% in June against 4.9% previously. Yesterday, the news came through that the African Union has chosen Rwanda as the continental headquarters for the new African E-Trade Group. The headquarters in Rwanda, according to the African Union, will help hundreds and millions of SMEs across Africa to get necessary support from the African Union. So the headquarters have been moved as is now located in Rwanda. In the meantime, within the central, most of the Central African Republic, there's very little news coming through from there. But when we look at the East African market, the Kenyan authorities has raised their shareholding in Shelter Afrique, which Nigeria is also a major shareholder by 1 billion shillings. That's what Kenya has done. Shelter Afrique basically is to provide a housing fund for across Africa as well, but that institution is based over there. Ghana is looking to double its tax revenue up to about 28% of GDP due to technology, digitalization, and all of that moving forward. That's according to the minister. Down in Zimbabwe, where the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has gotten clearance from the SEC to set up its own central securities depository. We also have news of the new stock exchange in Victoria Falls to have a Caledonia Mining, which is a Canadian company, to list there. They've chosen a financial advisor and they're getting ready to do that particular listing. We keep an eye on that development as well. For the rest of the continent, I'm not sure we didn't miss the story between MultiChoice and FRS back home in Nigeria. There's still a bit of a front and back between the two institutions. We'll see how that actually paces out moving forward. Within the Southern African market, the whole issue around the vaccine is still a whole lot of concern. But then one of the local banks, which is quite grounded in terms of commercial banking, retail banking, FBN, says is planning to float 50 new community branches across the country. Most of his peers, which are listed on the GSC, are closing down branches. They're focusing on specific needs of communities rather than just focus in cities where most of the folks are. So they're going down the grassroots, and they think that is where the market is. On a final note, for Ethiopia, is looking to restructure is $1 billion more of the country's debt, according to a Bloomberg report. Negotiations already on. We'll see how this will pace out for, how this will end for Ethiopia in terms of $1 billion country's debt negotiations. But everyone should remember that next week is the G20 meeting. The whole Africa debt conversation under the DSSI will be a major focus for next week. So everyone should keep an eye on that particular development on our calendar. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day and have a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Blaston. We have now come to the Q&A segment. If you have any question, you may use the raise hand function and we'll unmute you so that you can speak. And if you prefer not to speak, you can make use of the chat function available via Zoom. And if you're joining us from Facebook, you can make use of the comment section. Your questions will be read out and they'll be answered. Okay, looks like we do not have any questions today. Just before we end the session, we would like to remind everyone that we'll be having a special edition of the breakfast meeting next week, Tuesday, where our consumer goods analysts will be speaking to us on international breweries, a game of volumes. we hope that you join us next week. Thank you for joining us today and have a weekend ahead.